Welcome to Encounter, where we celebrate putting faith into action and community leaders who live out compassion, grace, and love. We're a program of the Broome County Council of Churches that addresses food insecurity through Chow and the Greater Good Grocery, provides hospital and jail ministry, builds wheelchair ramps, and assists neighbors with transportation and shopping services through Faith in Action volunteers. We invite you to the conversation. Encounter your neighbors as we learn to walk together in love and kindness.
Friends, welcome to the Encounter program sponsored by the Broome County Council of Churches. I'm your host, Mark Kimpland, the pastor at the Endwell United Methodist Church. I am delighted today to introduce the Bishop of the Upper New York Conference of the United Methodist Church, Bishop Héctor Burgos Núñez, to the show. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much, Mark. I'm glad to be here with you today.
Amidst the snow and the all of that, we were able to make this happen, so I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
I wanted to invite you on the show to kind of share who you are, your thoughts, your beliefs, your history, all of that, and kind of give our viewers and our listeners a snapshot of your ministry and what you're passionate about. And I thought it might be good perhaps to kind of start with your upbringing, your history. What is the history that has kind of brought you to this moment? And then maybe we'll move to your call, and then perhaps your roles and the multiple roles you have now as the bishop. But if we could start first, tell us a little bit about your background.
Of course. Well, again, thank you so much for having me today. It's truly an honor to be with you. You know, grew up in Puerto Rico, lived in Puerto Rico for the first 27 years of my life. It was back in Puerto Rico where I was introduced to the faith through the Methodist Church in Puerto Rico. So coming into the U.S. when I was an adult, I had experienced a different expression of what being a Methodist was. More of a conservative, charismatic environment. You know, the Methodist Church in Puerto Rico was highly influenced by retired Pentecostal pastors who embraced the Wesleyan thought and began, spreading the Methodist movement in there. So I grew up in a Christian family. I was blessed with that. And, in those first years, I developed a passion for music. So I'm a pianist and I compose music. And it was through that I started off in serving leadership in the church as a worship leader, first as a young person, then as a young adult. And it was there that I started to sense this passion for the work of the church. And I didn't feel like it was something that I just wanted to do on a weekend basis, but something that I want to give myself into. In Puerto Rico, as a Caribbean island, I was exposed to a different kind of reality and weather. We're having this interview, snowing outside. So God has a sense of humor of sending the Caribbean boy all the way to upstate New York.
No doubt.
But when my wife and I sense God calling us into this journey, adventure of faith, God made it very clear that we were not going to do ministry in Puerto Rico. So, through a servant, God said that he was going to send us to a strange land and that he was not going to let us set roots. So we were going to be on the move for God. Not knowing what that meant. That was almost 28 years ago. And as the journey has unfolded, now I see, God's perfect plan becoming for our lives. And when I heard this, I never thought about becoming a pastor. I maybe thought I'll continue to do my work in the IT industry and just offer myself fully in serving leadership as a lay person. But then, when we moved to New Jersey, it was there that I started to sense this passion for proclaiming the word and for being with people and connecting people with the good news of Christ. And the church, local church that we were part of in New Jersey, the pastor had a serious illness, and I was asked by the pastor if I could cover the pulpit for a couple of weeks. And it was in that period of time that I had that sense of clarity, that this is not something that you will do from time to time. This is something that God is inviting you into. And since then, it's been quite an adventure. And every day when I wake up, I say to God, oh my God, but only by your grace, I get to do what I do.
Now, take me to that time where you're filling in the pulpit, and for a few weeks, but that clarity comes. Can you flesh that out a little more? Were there other emotions tied to that? Was it full speed, 100% full bore, or was there discernment? Was there maybe? I know that I ran for my call for 4 to 5 years. Were there other things in the midst of that time that?
Great question.
that might have bubbled to the surface.
Of course. When I moved to New Jersey, I moved very clear that I was coming to the mainland U.S. looking for better job opportunities for my family. I had found that opportunity. I was, doing what I love as a information technology officer, and I had a lot of opportunities ahead of me for advancement. So, I was very clear. I had a plan. So when this started brewing within me, of course, there was a battle within me, and it was a battle of, do I let go of this plan that I have to embrace God's vision for my life? For a time, I started negotiating with God. God, can I do both? Can I find a creative way of doing both? And I know for some people the answer is yes, but for me the answer was no, I actually need you full time in this area, and and when I started to take some risk of faith, I said to God, okay, if this is truly you, I'm going to start taking little steps, and you have to show up big time to make sure for me that this is you. So the first thing that I had to do was started to get my education, for theological education to meet the educational requirements in the United Methodist Church. So when I talked to my employer at that time, I remember I said to him, I'm here to resign. I'm going to go to seminary because I'm sensing this call to ministry from God, and I have to move to the seminary dorms because that's the only housing piece that is going to work with us with this new reality. And I remember when he said, wait. And he started to talk me through my calling. This was a practicing Jew, and someone who, though we did not share necessarily all of the aspects of our faith, I remember he said to me, I want to explore with you this calling because you don't, and I don't share a faith, but we share a God. And it was in that moment that my whole body went numb, because I kind of felt that I was about to experience a God moment. And he said to me, there's something about you that I don't want to lose now in this time of my company. So go do your seminary. I will adjust your schedule so that you can continue doing your seminary work and be able to work for me. And I said, that's not going to work, because the amount of time I have to put into seminary doesn't work for me. So he said, no, we're going to go down to whatever time you can, because I don't want to lose you. And I said, but there's the benefits person. And he said, no, that's okay. So at the end of that conversation, I had a 30-hour schedule with full benefits, and my salary did not change.
Wow.
So God was providing for my family to be able to stay put, for us to have provision for the journey. And that was the moment that I realized, God is with us in this journey. He will provide everything. And I go back to that story every time God invites me into a new adventure, because my first question is, how am I going to provide? So those are the little things, though, or not that little things, that make you certain that God is in the midst of it.
Yeah, it's so amazing. I know in my journey through ministry, the people that show up, and the gifts that they have, and the grace that they share, and the understanding, all those pieces that you can't see in the beginning. But boy, after a while, you take a step back and go, God was there through it all. So you started that, and you went to seminary. Can you take us forward on that, Bishop?
Of course. Once I finished seminary, I was blessed to be able to be in parish ministry for about 12 years. I did 4 churches, including planting a church, which is one of my passions, starting new faith communities. And did ministry for about 9 years with mostly an undocumented immigrant community in southern New Jersey. And that was a life-changing experience for me, getting to know people, their stories, their struggles, and finding ways to provide a safe haven for them to build community and to nurture their faith. And also, so I've been an assistant pastor, an associate pastor, a senior pastor, and a church planter in that sense from the parish perspective. Then I received an invitation to serve as the director of worship and urban ministries for the Greater New Jersey Conference. Urban ministry is another of my passions. There's something about cities that draws me in, as the energy that they have, the diversity of people that they bring, and the challenges also kind of move me into action. So, that didn't last long, because about 6 months into this new role, then the bishop invited me to become the director of connectional ministries for our conference, where I had the blessing to lead the strategic plan for the Greater New Jersey Conference for 6 years. And that was a time of great learnings, great opportunities, building global, partnerships within the United Methodist Church. And, the part that I feel most, I don't want to say proud, but joyful. We were able to put forward a 10-year cultural competence plans, where we were inviting our congregations to grow in their cultural competence, not seeing it as a lack of, but inviting people to relearn how to connect our changing communities, how to meet the new neighbors. Because I believe that in many ways we have lost the art of relating to other people. And cultural competence gives you that skill set to, again, be able to relate to people.
And to become more of the community that is surrounding you that we sometimes miss.
Yes.
We really
and I have this concept that I want to move people from thinking about community and reclaim neighborhoods. Community is something that we can fabricate. We can create community, but the neighborhoods, that's the gift of God to us, and we want to engage our neighborhoods. So it was a time of great blessings. And then before becoming a bishop, I was serving as a district superintendent in Greater New Jersey, which gave me a complete different perspective of the life of the church and the realities, the opportunities, and challenges of the local church. As a pastor, you see your environment. As a district superintendent, you get to see a whole region and see the collective of what's happening. So it gives you a unique perspective as you do this work now.
Friends, I am thrilled to introduce our guest, the Bishop Héctor Burgos Núñez, who is the resident bishop here in the Upper New York Annual Conference. Take me through the bishop idea of how that all pans out, and I can only imagine what was going on in your head at that time at the jurisdictional conference and such. Can you just share a piece of that?
Becoming a bishop is not something that I was aspiring to. Back in 2018, a fellow clergy person approached me and said, "Have you ever thought about doing this, about putting yourself up for this?" And I said, "No, I've never done it."
Quite frankly, no.
So, this person shared things that he saw in me that would make a great profile for an Episcopal leader, and I received that, and I kept it in my heart, and but that question didn't go away. Kept coming to me in times of prayer. And then a couple more people approached me and asked similar question. Of course, in 2018, that was the time where the church was, going through very challenging times, and people were starting to get ready for the 2020 cycle.
Yes.
So, it was about beginning of 2019 that I started to get a sense that God was inviting me not to become a bishop, but inviting me to put myself, to offer myself to the church in this capacity, and let the wisdom of the body discern whether that's what was God's intent. Again, it was one of those times where you say, I'm taking a step in faith. Yeah. What a time to offer yourself to be a bishop. Yes. Some people are walking away from the church, and here I found myself going closer to the fire. Yeah. So there was an inner struggle, but also with that inner struggle, a sense of excitement started to build. Yes. Because once I put my heart and my mind on this possibility, I started to see, what could be. Yes. And I started to see a vision for the future, and that excited me. And I said, let's give this a try. Yeah. So I started conversations, with delegations, Greater New Jersey, then several delegations from the Northeast jurisdiction, and then November 2022. Came the jurisdictional conference, and it was a great experience. For people who are not familiar with this, when you go to jurisdictional conference, you engage in conversation with hundreds of people. You share about your vision, about your journey, about your hopes for the church. And as the more I share, the more excitement I got within myself. And I remember at the end of the interview days, I said, God, if nothing else happens, this happened. You gifted me with excitement for the future of the church in the midst of a time of struggle. So, and by the grace of God, the jurisdictional body elected me for the Episcopal office and gave me the honor of being first Hispanic Latino in the jurisdiction and the first Puerto Rican ever in the denomination.
Yes, wonderful. And we are glad you are with us. We welcome again Bishop Héctor Burgos Núñez. I always like to ask my guests on the show this question, and you can take it wherever you want. In your role as bishop, or as your role as a disciple, as your role wherever you want to take this, what gets you up in the morning, and what keeps you up at night, based on where you are spiritually, emotionally, physically in your ministry now? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Every morning I go back to a purpose statement that I was able to articulate while I was in seminary, and that has guided my journey since. And I remember that during this time I articulated that my purpose in life was to connect people to the healing love of Jesus Christ, so that their lives would be transformed, and through them the world. And in every role that I've carried, that has been my motivation. And in the morning when I wake up, the possibility of connecting something or someone or a system or a group to the healing love of Christ, it's something that gives me purpose and joy. So it's the driver, connecting people with the love of Christ. What keeps
you up at night?
What keeps me up at night?
I always like that question too.
We are living in very interesting times. My heart aches for the state of our world. We live in a time where individualism is taking over a community. So people are thinking the I, and have forgotten about the we. So that's something that keeps me awake at night. The violence around the world, the divisions in our communities, and the polarization of our society, that we keep losing that sense of togetherness. It's something that worries me a lot. And but in the midst of those worries, I spend a lot of time reflecting how can the church be countercultural? How can the church be a place of hope? So how do we, offer a different perspective where we can find community, unity in the midst of our diversity, where we can find purpose and joy together and celebrate each other rather than, kill each other with criticism and judgment.
Yes.
And the one thing that in this season that I really spend a lot of time in reflection late at night, is how to connect a new generation with the gospel, with the good news. There is not only the on-church, but it's also the church, those who are stepping away. Because we are more focused on our internal struggles rather than being in the world. And, there's a whole generation that is growing up without a sense of God in their lives, without guidance, from the wisdom from above. And that really keeps me awake. I know I'm a father of two young adults. Both of them love God. Neither of them want to do anything with the church. It's mostly because they see the struggles, the inner struggles of the church, and they wonder why bother.
Right.
Why bother? So I spend a lot of my time asking, how can we find purpose, missional unity, honoring our diversity, even our disagreements, and keeping Christ at the center? Because every time an issue seeks to divide us, it's because we have taken Christ out of the center. And we put the issue on the center. So how do we keep Christ at the center and journey together through our differences? It's something that I'm very intentional about reflecting and leading through.
Let me ask this. There are probably people listening or watching this show that are leaders in their church. Some are just here by accident or on purpose. They may be seeing this for the first time. Some may be of faith, some may not. What would you share to the present day church? What words of hope? I mean, amidst the division, amidst all of those things that you just painted very, very eloquently, there still are faithful people doing the best they can. What words of hope can you give them, or what kind of I don't want to say process or system or anything like that, but what can you offer to them in the midst of the division and the hostility and all of that in which we live?
As a disciple, I've always said it's not about what you do, it's about who you are. So, I'm encouraging the church to be the church, to be faithful, to be hope, to be mercy, to be compassion, to be justice. So, in my vision of discipleship, the church nurtures disciples who share faith, hope, mercy, compassion, and justice. So my invitation to people in the midst of all these struggles, in the midst of the challenges that the church is facing, is to be faithful to that calling, to wake up every day with a sense of gratitude. We live in a world that we're often asking, what can I get from others, from situations, from the church? And always inviting people to remember what you have received from God. That gift of grace, that gift of love, and then go out into the world, not necessarily to preach or to quote Bible verses to people, but to live the gospel, to live in hope, to live in mercy, to be someone who's just and fair, and find purpose in that, and find joy in that. When it comes to the struggles of the church, I'm going to quote Wesley, the founder of the Methodist movement. The good thing about all the struggles that we're going through is that God is with us. And because God is with us, things will move forward. We will move forward, and we'll find a way as long as we're genuinely seeking God's guidance and God's wisdom. More than ever, the world needs to hear about the good news of Jesus Christ in a grace-filled way.
Yes.
More than ever, people need to feel loved. People need to feel welcomed. So if we can be that welcoming presence in the world, if we can be that friendly face in the world, if we can be that listening ear in the world, we will be making a positive difference.
Absolutely.
So, I'm not inviting people to go out and just, stand on a corner and start preaching out loud. No, be the healing presence of God in the world.
Yeah. I think we share something very similar in our journeys, that I always felt loved, accepted, embraced as a child, as a youth, and just watching God act in such things. And I sense that with you also, that there's always been that neighborhood, that church, that community that has kind of enveloped you. And the idea is to be that to others, all others, with no qualifications and such. And that's we're in a brand new youth room right now called The Perch. And this is all about that. It's all about welcoming. And when we first had the kids in here, we were eating lunch and we just shut the lights off and we said, "What do you think about this space?" And one of those quiet kids said, "It's peaceful. It's peaceful." And I said, I think we did it.
Yeah.
At least the start of doing that.
Mark, I often said to people that when you go out and you hear stories about how people came to the faith, and you hear their journeys, sometimes I say, my story is kind of boring. But actually, I find hope in that boring story, because I said, people are wondering, what is it about the church? Let me tell you about what happens when you grow within the context of a faith community that loves you, that encourages you, that welcomes you as who you are, and that invests itself so that you can be who God created you to be, to your full potential. For me, that's my story, and I stick with that story because I think it's a story of hope. And God invited us into that community and to be that community.
I thank you. I thank you for this time. I thank you for your willingness to follow God's call amidst the vulnerability and the fear and the joy and all of that is to come. So thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Oh, and thank you so much for having me. It's been a blessing.
I appreciate it. Friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, our guest has been the Bishop Héctor Burgos Núñez, and I wish you and your family all the best in this new year, and be kind to one another.
Yes.
The Encounter program is just one ministry of the Broome County Council of Churches. You may know the council through its child program, the Community Hunger Outreach Warehouse. But the council also supports chaplaincies, the jail ministry providing an effective witness pointing to God's unconditional love as a source of emotional and spiritual renewal for those who are affected by the criminal justice system. At Wilson and Binghamton General Hospitals, on-call chaplains provide confidential visits, support for family members, and advocacy with support personnel. In addition, the Council's Faith in Action ministry empowers people ages 60 and up to be involved in their community. This ministry mobilizes a network of volunteers to provide free social programs and care partnerships, and also supports the Ramp It Up program. You'll find much more at broomecouncil.net. That's broomecouncil.net.